The bar at Fosley Hall Hotel was almost empty on that Friday night. The rain gently tapped on the windows, and the soft sound of jazz music played from a nearby speaker. Oliver sat on a stool, his boots covered in dried mud. His shirt had paint on it from making wedding place cards, and his fingers were stained with ink. He slowly took a sip of a pint that he couldn't really afford. His eyes were tired but hopeful. This was supposed to be the calm before the storm, just 2 more days until the wedding. 2 more days until he would stand in front of all his friends and family and promise to love the woman who had been with him through everything. But instead of feeling excited, Oliver felt like he was being crushed by all the things people expected from him. "Do you ever feel like you're setting yourself up to be judged?" he said quietly, mostly to himself. A man sitting 3 stools down lifted his glass of whiskey, like he understood what Oliver meant. He wore an old hoodie and a baseball cap that was pulled low over his face. He hadn't said anything since Oliver sat down. He just watched the ice melt in his drink. Oliver chuckled a little and said, "Sorry, I didn't mean to talk to you." The man glanced over and said, "That's a good question." His voice was deep and soft, like someone who had seen a lot of life. There was something calm about the way he spoke. Not polite, but real. Oliver wasn't sure why, but he kept talking. "My wedding's on Monday. It's going to be small. Cheap plastic cutlery, fairy lights, DIY everything. And Chloe, my fiancé's cousin, is coming. She works in fashion PR. The kind of person who judges you by how fancy your clothes are." The man smiled a little. "Sounds like a party." Oliver snorted. "Oh, it will be. Sandwiches and juice boxes. Can't wait to see her face." There was a quiet moment between them. It wasn't awkward, just peaceful. Oliver took another sip of his drink. "I met my fiancée working at a bookstore," Oliver continued. "We've been through hard times, evictions, losing jobs, our daughter being really sick for months. But we made it here, and now I'm worried someone like Chloe will make us feel like we're not good enough." The man turned to face him fully now. His eyes were steady and kind. "Sounds like everything you've built is real. People forget that being real is always enough." Oliver stared at him for a moment. Then he smiled. "You know what? That actually helps." He reached for his wallet, but then stopped. "Hey, weird idea. If you're bored on Monday morning, come by the garden behind the hall. You don't need to bring anything, just a sandwich and your appetite." The man paused for a second and then nodded. "Thanks. I'll remember that." They didn't exchange names. Just a quick handshake before Oliver went upstairs. Little did he know, the man he had just talked to was Keanu Reeves. He didn't know he had invited a movie star to his wedding. Sunday morning came quickly. The sun was just barely up, hidden behind some clouds. Oliver stood in the middle of the garden behind Fosley Hall, holding a clipboard like it might fall apart if he let go. The chairs didn't match, the bunting hung a little low, and the paper flowers Hannah's friends made were already wilting from the morning dew. He fixed the rows of chairs, stepped back, and then fixed them again. His chest felt tight, not from stress, but from something heavier. In his head, he kept hearing Chloe's voice even though she wasn't there yet. "Stop panicking," Hannah said behind him, nudging him gently. "It's beautiful. It's us." Oliver exhaled. "I know. It's just. Chloe's coming. And probably half of London's fashion crowd. She's family." Hannah shrugged. "Which means we have to let her drink our juice boxes." Oliver let out a weak laugh. They sat down on the edge of a wooden gazebo, watching their 4-year-old daughter, Lily, run around the lawn in a puffy white dress and purple plastic butterfly wings. She was singing to herself, with a crooked daisy chain on her head. Oliver smiled as he watched her. At least one of them was ready. "She thinks it's a fairy tale," Hannah said softly. "And you know what? Maybe it is," Oliver replied, taking her hand and rubbing her ring finger. "I just wish we had more. More of everything," he said. "A better dress for you. A real cake, not leftover bunting from Dave's kid's birthday. Hannah turned serious. Oliver, we've had eviction notices on our door. We've eaten canned soup for a week to afford medicine. We watched over Lily at night when her breathing sounded wrong. But you know what we never did? Oliver looked at her, curious. We never gave up on each other. She smiled at him. So don't look at this wedding and see what it's missing. See what it is. Oliver blinked, feeling the tightness in his chest ease a little. And Chloe? Hannah smirked. She can choke on her Gucci heels. Oliver laughed louder than he meant to, and Hannah joined in. Their laughter echoed across the empty garden like a secret they were letting the wind carry. But still, as the sun climbed higher, Oliver couldn't shake the feeling that judgment was coming. Chloe always found a way to make things about her and point out what was wrong. Tomorrow, in front of everyone they cared about, she'd show up like a storm in heels. But as Oliver looked at Hannah, at Lily pretending to marry a stuffed fox, he knew one thing for sure. No matter how loud Chloe's voice might be, this wedding, this life, was theirs. And that would have to be enough. Monday came too soon. The morning was cool and almost perfect, like the universe was trying to apologize. Guests started to arrive in small groups. There were hugs, laughter, and excitement. Then, everything changed. A sleek black Audi pulled up to the gravel driveway like it was too important for just any place. The windows were tinted, and the rims were shiny. It wasn't just a car, it arrived with style. Oliver felt Hannah tense up beside him. That's her, she whispered. Out stepped Chloe. Her golden dress shimmered like metal in the sun, almost too bright. She wore giant sunglasses, and her heels sank into the grass like they didn't like the ground. Behind her was Ryan, with a model jawline, a smug smile, and sunglasses inside. There were two women with them, dressed in matching pastel colors, taking pictures like they were at some fancy party. Chloe didn't wave. She looked around like she was judging everything, like she was a critic at a play. Oliver walked up to her, trying to be polite. Chloe, Ryan, I'm glad you could make it. Chloe took off her sunglasses slowly, like it was a performance. Oliver, what a quaint little affair, she said. Did your florist run out of real flowers? He smiled tightly. We wanted personal touches. Ryan laughed a little too loudly. Looks like Pinterest exploded. Hannah walked up with Lily, holding her hand. Lily's butterfly wings fluttered as she skipped beside her mom. Chloe leaned in to give Hannah an air kiss, but it didn't even touch her cheek. Darling, Chloe said, you look so brave. I could never have the confidence to wear something so homespun. Hannah, calm as ever, replied, you're right. It takes a lot of heart to wear something that wasn't picked by a stylist. Chloe's mouth twitched like she didn't know what to say to that. Ryan looked at the chalkboard welcome sign Oliver had written the night before. He pulled out his phone. Babe, this lighting is terrible. We need a selfie under that flower arch before the kids ruin it. Chloe smirked, already planning her next move in her head. The guests tried not to stare, but the air around them felt different. Conversations became quieter. The smell of the sandwiches, which had been nice, was now replaced by the feeling of judgment. Lily looked up at her dad and asked, why is everyone frowning? Oliver crouched beside her and tried to smile. Sometimes people forget how to smile with their hearts. Lily nodded, looking serious as she adjusted her butterfly wings. Oliver's heart was beating faster. Chloe might have walked into the party looking like a queen, but this wasn't her castle, not today. When the guests started talking again and the music played, Oliver looked toward the garden gate. He wasn't sure why, but he felt like someone important was about to arrive. The ceremony wasn't starting for another hour, but the air already felt tense, like a storm was coming. Chloe's words and the way she acted made everything feel uncomfortable. Inside the reception tent, Oliver was checking the sandwiches, tuna, egg, and cucumber, neatly labeled in Hannah's handwriting, when he suddenly heard a loud crash. The kind of crash that didn't just happen by accident. He rushed outside, his heart racing. And there, lying on the grass, was the wedding cake. It was supposed to be a beautiful cake with 3 layers of lemon sponge, cream cheese frosting, and fresh strawberries. But now, it was smashed. The top layer had fallen down, and strawberries rolled across the ground like little red marbles. The table holding the cake was crooked, one leg folded under it. Chloe stood next to the cake, raising her hands in a fake, overdramatic way. "Oh no," she said, acting surprised. "I barely touched it." Ryan, who always had his phone ready, didn't film the cake. Instead, he filmed Chloe's reaction. "Babe," he said, act shocked again. That was hilarious. Oliver froze, trying to understand what was happening. Dave and Hannah came running over, both looking shocked. Hannah bent down to pick up strawberries with trembling hands. "It was made by Oliver's mom," Hannah said, not looking up. "She stayed up all night to make it." Chloe smiled a little. "Well, at least you still have sandwiches." Ryan laughed and whispered into his phone's camera, "When the wedding cake comes from someone's garage." That's when Oliver couldn't take it anymore. He stepped in between them and said firmly, "Chloe, please just stop." "What did I say?" Chloe asked, pretending she didn't understand. Hannah stood up, holding part of the ruined cake in her hands. Her face wasn't angry, it was tired. Her heart felt tired. And that hurt more. The guests nearby started to whisper, looking at the mess and the woman from London who didn't seem to care about anything. Ryan kept filming and said, "Oh man, this is going viral." He looked at his phone and said, "Look, babe, even the cake knew it was in the wrong place." Oliver turned to Ryan, angry now. "Are you really posting this?" Ryan shrugged and said, "Just a little fun. No one knows who you guys are anyway." Before Oliver could say anything, Hannah gently put her hand on his arm and said, "No, don't let them win like that." Instead of fighting back, they started to clean up the mess together, but it was too late. The cake was ruined. The mood was ruined. And somewhere, Ryan's video was already spreading across the internet, laughing at their wedding, their family, and their love. Chloe walked back to the refreshment table like nothing had happened, brushing invisible crumbs from her dress. But Oliver couldn't stop looking toward the garden gate. Something, or someone, was coming. The wind shifted, just a little, enough for Oliver to notice. It made the paper garlands on the table flutter and carried the sound of footsteps over the gravel path. Oliver looked up, and his heart skipped a beat. There, standing just beyond the garden wall, was a figure. A man wearing a black t-shirt, a creased blazer, and worn boots. No gift, no tie, just a calm presence like a tree that had been through storms. Oliver squinted. It couldn't be, but it was. Keanu Reeves. Before Oliver could take a step forward, Chloe saw him too. She straightened and marched across the grass, her heels clicking loudly. "Excuse me," she shouted. "This is a private event. If you're with catering, they're through the back." Keanu didn't say anything at first. He just nodded a little, like he understood her attitude, but didn't let it affect him. Ryan, who was always quick with his phone, followed her. "Wait, is this guy serious?" he asked, already filming. Oliver rushed past some guests who were starting to whisper, and Hannah froze near the lemonade stand, her eyes wide. "Wait, is that really him?" Chloe blocked the path. "Look, we're not doing photos or autographs, okay," she said. "You're clearly not dressed for a wedding." Finally, Keanu spoke. His voice was calm and steady. "I was invited." The words cut through the noise like a bell ringing. Even the children went quiet. Chloe blinked. "By who?" Oliver stepped forward, his voice filled with awe. "By me." Keanu turned to him and gave a small smile. "You said drop by if I was around." Oliver couldn't believe it. "I didn't think you'd really come. I thought you were just being nice." Behind them, people were whispering like crazy. "Is that really him?" someone asked. "Oh my God, it's Keanu." Chloe stood frozen, her face going pale. Ryan slowly lowered his phone, realizing this wasn't a joke. Keanu looked at Chloe, not with hate or anger, but with calm honesty. "I'm not here for the spotlight," he said. "I'm here to keep a promise to someone who treated me like a person, not a celebrity." Oliver's throat tightened. He could barely speak. "We just talked that night in the bar about everything, about how messy life can get." Keanu smiled again. "You didn't ask for anything." Lily peeked out from behind Hannah's dress, her eyes wide. "Hey, you're the man from the dog movie," she said. Keanu chuckled. "Guilty." Everyone laughed, the tension in the air breaking. The guests felt lighter, happier. Chloe's power over the room was gone. Keanu didn't just stand there like a celebrity. He acted like a friend. He held Lily's hand, helped carry folding chairs for older guests, and even straightened a crooked picture frame on the welcome table, as if it were his own family's photo. Then, something amazing happened. Someone took a picture of Lily spinning in her butterfly wings, and Keanu clapping and smiling next to her, like he was just another guest at the wedding. The background showed the garden, the paper flowers, and Hannah laughing off to the side. The picture was posted on TikTok, and in 30 minutes, it had 200,000 views. By the time the ceremony started, half of the guests were talking about the video. "People online think it's a music video," one person whispered. "My sister in California just texted me the clip," someone else said. Ryan checked his phone and went pale. "Ah, babe," he said, turning the screen toward Chloe. Chloe looked at the phone and saw the top comment on the video. It read, "This woman knocked over a homemade cake and laughed." Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves showed up at the same wedding just to be kind. Chloe's smile faded, and her lips curled up in a fake way. "Well, the internet never forgets, sweetie." And just like that, the day had shifted. The wedding might have had a ruined cake and a tense mood, but thanks to Keanu Reeves, the story had changed. No one, not even Chloe, could rewrite it again. Chloe stood there, frozen, staring at her phone. Her heart was racing. She saw her own words right beside the pictures of Keanu. It felt strange, like everything had suddenly turned into a battle between two sides, cruelty and kindness, vanity and humility. She couldn't stop reading the comments that had started flooding her phone. She saw it all, people talking about Keanu's kindness, his smile, the way he looked at Hannah. Her words, her tone, the things she had said about the wedding, it all seemed to be a part of something she wasn't a part of anymore. She felt the world watching, but they weren't watching her. They were watching them. They were watching Keanu. And they were watching Hannah and Oliver, the happy couple who had gotten married in the most beautiful ceremony. Hashtags had started trending on the internet, Keanu wedding butterfly bride, and this is real love. Even Keanu's official fan pages were posting about it. They said this wedding was the most wholesome and beautiful surprise of all time. Chloe stared at her phone, trying to understand how things had changed so quickly. She had always been the center of attention, the one people talked about. But now, she felt like she was invisible. It was as if the world had moved on from her and she was just a footnote in someone else's story. The comments on her social media were mocking her, making fun of her laugh, her attitude, and the way she had tried to take control of the spotlight. They were all laughing at her, and she didn't know what to do. But while Chloe was stuck in this storm of thoughts, everything around her was calm. The guests at the wedding had gathered in the beautiful garden. The sun was starting to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the rows of white chairs where everyone had taken their seats. Hannah walked down the aisle, a little girl, Lily, beside her as the flower girl. Lily tossed flower petals in the air, but they didn't fall in neat rows. Instead, they went in all directions, creating a playful and happy moment. The guests laughed as they watched her, and the sound of their laughter was like music filling the air. Keanu, who had been invited as a surprise guest, stood quietly to the side, watching the ceremony. He didn't make a fuss. He just stood there, calm and peaceful. Oliver stood at the altar beneath the arch, which was covered in beautiful garlands of flowers. He had his hands in his pockets, and his face was full of contentment. You could see the happiness in his eyes. It was a happiness that wasn't fake, it wasn't forced, it was just real. When the vows began, everyone went quiet. No one checked their phones. No one whispered. There was a calm in the air, as if everyone was listening with their hearts. It was no longer about Keanu, or who wore what, or how much the cake had cost. It was about something deeper. It was about the way Oliver and Hannah looked at each other. They didn't just look like they were in love, they looked like they couldn't believe this was really happening. And it was happening. It was real. Their vows were filled with love, promises, and dreams of the future. When they kissed, everyone clapped. Lily, who had been holding her mom's hand, squealed with delight. The guests joined in the celebration, and Keanu smiled softly. Meanwhile, people on the internet were still talking about Keanu's wedding cameo, but here, in this beautiful corner of the English countryside, it was peaceful. It was calm. The ceremony was over, and the sun was starting to set, giving everything a warm, golden glow. Children ran around barefoot, giggling and playing. Adults took off their shoes and loosened their ties to relax. Keanu, yes, that Keanu, was crouching beside the buffet table. He was patiently helping Oliver's grandmother FaceTime her sister, who lived far away in Cornwall. He didn't act like a movie star. He was just a kind person, helping someone who needed it. It should have been perfect. It looked perfect. But Chloe didn't feel perfect. She stood at the edge of the garden, her arms folded across her chest. She was wearing a beautiful dress, but she didn't feel beautiful. Her eyes were hidden behind her designer sunglasses, but she was still watching everything with an angry glare. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications, and it was all about her. About what she had said. About how she had tried to grab the spotlight at the wedding. Chloe had been the center of attention before, but now it felt like everyone had forgotten about her. No one cared about what she had to say. They were all focused on Hannah and Oliver and their love story. Chloe had wanted to be the one everyone talked about, but now she felt like she didn't matter. Her fingers dug into the silk of her dress as she clenched her jaw. She was angry. She was upset. Ryan, who had been standing beside her, wasn't saying anything. He hadn't posted anything new in over an hour. His confidence was fading, just like hers. He didn't even care anymore. Chloe's voice was low, but venomous when she spoke. She thinks she's Cinderella, she sneered. All because Keanu smiled at her once. Ryan shrugged and said, he danced with the kid, signed someone's paper plate. The internet eats that stuff up. Chloe snapped, it's not real. None of it is. Keanu will leave, and Hannah will go back to her normal life, counting pennies. But then something inside Chloe snapped. Like a storm was building, she marched across the lawn, her heels digging into the soft grass. She was angry, and she was determined to say something. She walked straight into the group where Hannah, Oliver, Keanu, and their close friends were standing, laughing and eating cake. Wow, Chloe said, clapping slowly. This really is your moment, huh? Everyone turned and stared at her. Hannah, who was already tired, said wearily, maybe now's not the time, Chloe. But Chloe wasn't finished. Oh, come on, she sneered. Let's not pretend. First, you get the house, then the baby, and now this. What did you do? Cry at the bar until a movie star agrees to show up? Oliver stepped forward, his face serious. Enough, Chloe. But Chloe wasn't going to stop. You really think this means something, she said, her eyes flashing with anger. He's an actor. This is just a cameo, not a real connection. He'll forget you by the time his plane lands. Keanu moved then. He didn't rush. He wasn't acting out. He just stepped forward calmly, as always. I am an actor, Keanu said gently. I've played assassins and legends, but none of those roles have meant more than being invited here by someone who treated me like a human being. He looked at Chloe, not with anger, but with a sadness that made her stop in her tracks. You can spend your life chasing rooms that shine on the outside, Keanu continued, his voice soft but firm. or you can walk into one that shines because of the people inside. For a moment, everything went still. Chloe didn't know what to say. She blinked, but no words came out. Ryan quietly stepped back. The guests around them watched, unsure of what was happening. Hannah let out a deep breath, and Oliver wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Keanu smiled at Lily, who giggled and offered him another piece of cake. And in that moment, Chloe realized that this story, the one everyone was focused on, wasn't hers anymore. She was no longer the center of attention. She wasn't the one people cared about. The sky was changing, turning from blue to purple as the sun set. The golden light faded, and the garden started to glow with the soft light from paper lanterns that had been hung in the trees. The guests continued to enjoy their time, eating, laughing, and chatting. Keanu stood quietly by the fountain, watching it all. He didn't speak much, but his calm presence was felt by everyone. He didn't need to say anything, his quiet kindness was enough. Hannah, still barefoot and holding Lily's tiny hand, walked up to Keanu. "You really going now?" she asked, her voice soft. Keanu smiled and nodded. "Yeah. It's time." Lily, still sleepy, tugged at his sleeve. "Can I keep the photo?" she asked. Keanu knelt down, brushing a curl from her forehead. "You keep that and one more thing," he said gently. "When people are mean, don't try to outshine them. Just keep shining. They'll figure it out." Lily nodded seriously, like she was a queen receiving advice from her royal counselor. Oliver, who had been standing nearby, walked over with his phone. "I know you hate this part," he said, "but could we take just one photo? The three of us?" Keanu smiled. "Of course." They didn't pose for the photo. They didn't fix the lighting. They just stood there together. Oliver had one arm around Hannah, Hannah had one hand resting on Keanu's shoulder, and Lily was holding his fingers like they were always meant to be there. Someone took the photo. Later, that photo would become famous, but not because it had a movie star in it. It would go viral because it showed something that people hadn't seen in a long time, kindness that expected nothing in return. Keanu said his goodbyes quietly and walked into the night. There was no spotlight, no cheering crowds, just the soft sound of gravel crunching beneath his boots and the wind rustling the leaves of the trees. Chloe, standing behind a trellis of mason jar lanterns, hadn't spoken since the earlier confrontation. No one had come to talk to her. No one had asked for selfies. No one had invited her to join them. Chloe stood there, scrolling past the now viral photo of Keanu holding Lily's hand under the garden lights. She didn't like it, and she didn't comment on it, but she stared at it longer than she meant to. Maybe, just for now, that was enough. Weeks later, Oliver and Hannah printed that photo and hung it on their wall. Not because it was famous, but because it was theirs. People still asked if it was really Keanu Reeves. Oliver would always smile and say, "Yeah, but that's not what made it special." One day, Lily would grow up. She might not remember every word Keanu said, but she would always remember the way he looked at her. Not like she was just a little girl, but like she mattered. Because kindness, real kindness, doesn't need applause. It doesn't need fame. It just stays with you. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a reminder that kindness still matters. It was a reminder that real connections are what make life beautiful. And Chloe, standing there in the distance, had realized she no longer had a place in the story everyone cared about. If you like this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.